Greta looked at her husband sitting at the kitchen table, and tears slowly streamed down her cheeks. He had not been feeling well lately, and today, after a medical examination, he found out his terrible diagnosis, which was a real shock to both spouses. They had no money for an expensive operation in foreign clinics, which meant that the man faced a long and possibly useless therapy here. Seeing her husband, who had left his dinner untouched, waddled sluggishly into the room and lay down, turning to the wall, Greta went to the window and burst into tears, unable to restrain her emotion any longer. From that day on, sadness and hopelessness settled in their house. Lloyd spent almost all his time in the hospital, and when he came home, he did not want to talk to anyone. Greta could not calmly watch how he was suffering. Even their 5-year-old son, Sam, became quiet and stopped playing pranks. And when Greta told him that he would go to visit his grandmother Sylvia, he rejoiced greatly, anticipating how much fun he would have living with his favourite grandmother and playing with the cat and the dog. Greta's mother lived in the village and was very happy to see her grandson. She hugged and kissed the boy, saying how well they would live together. When cheerful Sam ran to play, Sylvia turned to her daughter and anxiously asked about her husband's health. Greta told her mother that Lloyd had completely collapsed and lost hope. "Is there no way out?" asked Sylvia regrettably. "You know, Mother, I have an idea. I saw an ad for surrogate mothers, and they pay a lot for it." "No way, daughter. How could you do something like that? To sell babies?" "No, not like that, Mom. A woman wants a baby, and she can't give birth. I will help her become a mother and can save my husband's life." Sylvia was silent and thoughtful, and then, with a heavy sigh, said that since this was the only way out, she must do as her heart dictated, and from her side promised support. Now, the most difficult thing for Greta seemed to persuade Lloyd, but to her surprise, when she arrived home and shared her idea with him, he laughed happily and grabbed Greta in an arm and whirled her around the room. "Thank you, my love. I had no idea you loved me so much. Now I can sleep in peace and not think about my imminent death. Do you know how scary that is?" "Everything will be all right," Greta replied and kissed her husband soundly. Greta acted quickly. She found clients, arranged the paperwork, and soon became pregnant. According to the contract, she was supposed to receive monthly payments, and the main sum was to be given at the birth of the child. These conditions suited everyone, and Greta and her husband began to wait. As soon as he managed to raise some money, Lloyd went to the best diagnostic centre to undergo a full examination before the surgery. By this time, Greta was already 20 weeks pregnant, and soon she was to have an ultrasound that would tell her the gender of the baby. Lloyd had been gone for a few days, and she was looking forward to hearing from him. When he called, she grabbed the phone and heard Lloyd shouting her name into the receiver non-stop. "What's wrong?" asked Greta, fearfully, anticipating trouble, but in response she heard her husband's cheerful laughter. "Oh, darling, I'm not ill. Our doctors made a mistake. Can you imagine? My illness is treated with simple pills," shouted Lloyd happily. After the conversation, Greta slowly sank on the couch and cried for joy. She stroked her rounded belly and thought that this baby brought them joy and good luck. Lloyd came back a few days later and was in high spirits. But soon Greta noticed that her husband's mood had changed. He sort of distanced himself from her, often began to go to sleep separately on the sofa, as if he was ashamed of her. She tried to talk, but he always replied that everything was fine. But one day, Greta insistently asked what was the matter, as she was very uncomfortable with this squeamish attitude. and her husband explained that her pregnancy was to blame. Lloyd confessed that he could not get used to it and put up with it, and was only waiting for the moment when all this would be over and they would get their money. He even shared with Greta plans on how to spend it. Since they did not need the money for treatment, Lloyd decided to buy a new electric car, which he had been dreaming about for several years. Greta was shocked. She was carrying the baby, and her opinion on what to spend the money on was not even asked. She pointed this out to Lloyd, who was only surprised and sarcastically asked, "And what do you want?" "I don't know. I'm just tired of it all," Greta whispered and cried. Lloyd came up to his wife and embraced her. Greta kept sobbing and saying that it was very hard for her, and soon it would become even harder, because according to the agreement, she would have to move to a rented apartment and live there until the birth. She will only be able to call her husband, and it will be so hard for her to do all of this on her own without his support. Lloyd tried to reassure his wife and promised that when everything would be over, they would take Sam and certainly go to rest together, and the whole nightmare would be forgotten. Greta could not calm down for a long time, but remembering that she had to go for an ultrasound, she pulled herself together and drove to the clinic. The ultrasound revealed that Greta was expecting a girl. The woman immediately called her client and informed him of the gender of the child, but was unpleasantly surprised to hear silence in the tube. And then the expectant mother of the baby, Miranda, said that Greta would be contacted soon and hung up. Greta didn't like Miranda's tone, and soon she received a call informing her that her services were no longer needed. "What about the baby?" asked Greta in shock. "The clients are only interested in a boy, and you will have a girl. I don't know how it happened, but the terms of the contract clearly specify the gender of the child." "It's not written in any contract. I would never sign such a condition," Greta shouted into the phone. "It's nobody's fault that you don't read the papers you sign. By the way, as of this month, all payments will cease, and of course, there will be no main remuneration either." "No, wait!" pleaded Greta, but her interlocutor had already hung up. When Greta told Lloyd about everything at home, he was furious. He looked at the contract and actually found there was a small stipulation about the gender of the child. He started yelling at his wife and accusing her of inattention. Greta tried to justify herself because at that time she was not concerned about it. She was very worried about her husband's life, but it turned out that Lloyd did not appreciate her effort. He made it clear that he did not ask his wife for help, and now she would have to solve her problems herself. He was especially upset about the fact that the money would not be paid. He literally ordered Greta to immediately get rid of the child, who was no longer needed, and if she did not do it, he threatened to leave her. The woman was stunned by such savagery. She did not understand how it would be possible to get rid of the baby at such a great term. It was both illegal and totally immoral. From that moment on, her life became a living hell. Her husband did not want to talk to her, got angry, started coming home less often, and eventually had an affair on the side. When Greta found out about it, she packed her things and left for her mother's without saying goodbye. Sylvia, learning what misfortune had befallen her daughter, supported Greta, promised that she would help, and they themselves will raise the little girl. Time passed. Soon Greta gave birth to a healthy, strong girl whom she named Bella. Sam and grandmother adored her, and Greta completely dissolved in the baby and could not imagine her life without her. Once Lloyd came to her and said that he missed his family and offered to go back. But Greta could not forgive her husband, and so she asked him to leave and never come back. Her son and daughter were a reward for her suffering and a consolation, and there was no place for traitors. To her surprise, after a while, Miranda called and asked if the girl was born healthy, and said that she had changed her mind and she wished to take her away. Greta sharply told the woman never to call here again, that she would raise her daughter herself, and hung up. Then she walked over to the sleeping children in their cribs and whispered, "My dears, I won't give you up to anyone. After all, I love you as only a mother can love. Now we'll be fine, for sure."